but a flawed philosophy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But as far as the podcast itself goes, you know, sometimes people ask, well, what is the real bottom line purpose of this podcast? And we've talked about this on other podcasts before. The four principles of religion, that actually hold society up if they are present in society, have been eroded away, and basically these principles don't exist, and the only one left is truthfulness, and it's so
Yeah.
shaky and deteriorated that it's like an icicle hanging down from a frozen waterfall that's just ready to break off at any moment, and you're trying to climb up this icicle. It's like you're on
Yeah.
shaky ground. So the idea is to present truthfulness in this podcast. And the definition for truthfulness, I just ran across this in one of my readings of the Vedic teachings. Truthfulness is speaking frankly about the nature of reality without distorting the facts to please others.
Wow.
So let's read that again. Truthfulness is speaking frankly about the nature of reality without distorting the facts to please others. So that's the foundation of this podcast. You know, to present the facts, reality, without distorting it, because somebody won't like this, or this group of people might be offended, or somebody might not like us because we say this, whatever.
Yeah.
Then you don't get truthfulness. You just get
Yeah.
all kinds of adjusted fake, what do they talk about all the time? Fake news. It's not really what we need. you know and if truthfulness is one of the pillars of society, for society to be whole and strong and flourishing and nourishing to the citizens, then truthfulness is an absolute necessity.
And it's even like, even though you don't think that you offend someone, I think most people speak to, because for some, to some extent or another, they want followers, or they want money, or they want appreciation, they want something from, the person that they're speaking to.
Yeah, so you're controlled by them.
Exactly.
You've already compromised yourself and
Exactly.
sold out basically to the audience. And you may
Exactly.
have an amazing, number of followers. I mean, it might be thousands, millions, who knows, you know. But what is the value? And that's where this idea of, the century of the self has gone. It's taken us in that direction, and now it's just running full speed ahead, you know. So we look the way we will think other people will like us to look, or we say what other people, want to hear, or we play all kinds of compromised games. We compromise ourselves completely. We sell out
Yeah.
ourselves, and therefore we're totally feeling like that. I'm not really me, you know. I'm not really myself. I'm what everybody else wants me to be. I'm not really myself, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the other whole movement to, be yourself. But that means just blending in what everybody else says you should be like in a different way.
Yeah, and if they don't want to know what the self is, I mean, because that seems like a big philosophical. Like, I even wrote in the marketing, I felt like that's a big philosophical question. What is the self? But if we're speaking about center of the self and focusing on the self, we have to know what the self is. However, are we gonna focus on the self if we don't know what that is? You
That's
know,
right.
it just seems like it's taken for granted that we know that I'm this body, this is what I am my senses and whatever. Like,
Yeah.
Here's my passport, like you say, sometimes like it's clearly stated.
You know, yeah, I am who my passport says I am and who society thinks I am. And now that's become so controversial that, you know, okay, I got this self, but I'm going to change it to another self.
Yeah,
And where does it end? It just keeps getting more and more confusing and more, you know, unfulfilling because none of it's true. This
yeah,
truthfulness statement is not being applied to our lives. It sounds good on paper. Yes, yes, yes. I agree. But when you start applying that to your life, it's not really played out. So
exactly.
the purpose of this podcast is to present the truth as it is declared in these yoga teachings that we base all of our knowledge and vision and understanding, on, and let it fall where it does. It just we'll find fertile ground in some places, and other places it will not.
Yeah,
And the example given in the Vedas oftentimes is the rain cloud. It rains on the everything. It rains on the rocks. It rains on the desert. It rains on the fertile soil. It rains on the ocean. And it has different effects depending on where it falls.
yeah,
So
yeah,
obviously, this podcast will have different effects depending on where it falls. From pushback to, thank you to receptivity to, wow, this changed my life to, it's okay, but I'm not interested. I mean, it'll run the gamut. We know that. I mean, it's not any mystery here,
yeah.
you know, but it's still going to be the way the way it is. And yeah.
And we just, but yeah, is it is it possible to become more receptive then? I mean, that's on the receiver end. Yeah, how do we?
Well, yes, of course,
Just
and that's one of the ideas behind breaking trail. You may not like breaking trail. Breaking trail, kind of comes from a mountain, background between Ruben and I. Really, is
exactly.
where,
Maybe good to mention.
yeah, where did this name come from? Because when you're traveling in the mountains, you know, there's trails that are well worn and obviously they're on the maps and it shows where you're going to go and what to expect ahead and et cetera, et cetera. And then there might be other unknown trails and it's not on the map or you don't really know what's coming up, and so therefore you take the chance. It's kind of like take the adventure. Let's see where this thing goes, you know. Or in winter, it's even more obvious. I mean, you can be on an established route, but say there's a recent snowstorm and the trail has disappeared, and therefore you've got to break trail. You've got to make a new trail through the new snow, and it could be deep, and it increases the difficulty, a lot.
Yeah,
And the signs, and the trail indicators and so on that you used to rely on because you've been down this trail many times are gone. It disappeared, and well, where is the trail now? You're looking at such you know, an unmarked landscape, and so it becomes more challenging physically and mentally and orienteering wise. And I know the person's going to hear it say, well, you just get out your phone with your GPS and, it becomes very clear, you know.
well,
Or your map and your compass and all that's true, but it still doesn't make the deep snow any easier to go across just
that's
because
very true.
you're going in the right direction,
That's very true.
you know. But if you've got your goal and you know where you're trying to go and you just keep going, you know, you're breaking new trail and therefore it breaks into a new area of your abilities and your determination and et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the concept behind this breaking trail
And
name.
and it's just like knowing that you have somewhere to go. It makes it so much easier. Like I just remember once when I was hiking. This was in February in north of Sweden. It's just really really dark all the time and really cold. It's probably minus 25 or something. We're just hiking for a long long time and we're looking for this cabin. And of course we had our like GPS watches, so we plotted in many of the cabin coordinates in the GPS watch, so it would tell us like how far it is to go to the cabin. But this one cabin we didn't because we thought, oh, we're gonna find it. It's not. So we're walking and walking, and just like when you don't know where you're going, like or when you just like it's just so frustrating to to just keep walking. You're looking for this cabin, and you're like we're looking at because we didn't have the watch. Like we didn't know. We had no clue like where this is gonna be. We were like out there in the dark, and just finally we decided we're gonna put up the tents right here because it's so easy to like just you decide to put up, or it's very easy to it's very hard to make the decision when to put the tent up, when to just say no, enough is enough, I'm gonna camp here. So we that's why we kept walking and walking, but eventually we said we're not gonna put our tents up. But that's when we in the far distance we saw something and we said, that's got to be the hut. We saw like 10 got to be the huts before that, but this time we went for it, and there were rocks, but this one was a hut finally. And yeah, so just having that direction, because
Yeah.
once we knew that that was a cabin, and once we could see it, once the like what is it called, the form of the cabin was there, we could see it. Walking through the snow wasn't a hard thing. We didn't even think about it. Like we were just like even a full day, so tired, so cold. We didn't think about it. It was easy
Yeah.
because you knew like
The,
that's the
yeah.
goal.
Yeah, all those things come into play in life. We can talk about it, and the examples of, our trips in the mountains and so on. But really, life is that journey. And, we have to break trail from beginning to end, really. And we need some guidance. We need some direction. We need to know what the goal is. And, you know, that's why we have our scriptures, the maps, if you will, of life. And we have the guides, the spiritual masters that, guide us. And, but we have to still have the determination inside to want to do this. And, the more you do it, the more that is increased. I really like this. And one success leads to another success. Success was defined as the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. So you have an aim and you achieve it. That gives you even more impetus
Mm.
to keep going. You know, and ultimately, well, let's back up a little bit because you mentioned it, a while back that
Mm.
this is the century of the self. But if we don't know who the self is, then what are we dealing with? We don't even know what we're dealing with. You know, and so again, we've talked about this on various occasions that the self that we speak about is the spiritual self, the true self, our true identity. Who am I? Really, not the temporary identity of the body we happen to be living in at this moment, you know. And so if we don't know our true self, then what we do is falsely identify with the temporary bodily self. And there's two levels here, the physical and the mental. And, our whole life revolves around that, you know. So that's why this thing has caught on so much, the century of the self, because people are, you know, more and more able to present their material self to other people, with just a click of a button or, a
Mm.
post on the social media or something, and get some feedback. And
I
so it
see.
just brings us more and more into a self-centered consciousness of look at me. This is what I did, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to do. And we present it like it's the best thing that's ever happened. And we're having so much fun doing it. you know.
Yeah.
And all it does is just make the other people who know they're not doing it, and they probably won't ever have that same opportunity, envious because it looks like, you know, that they're having more fun than I am,
Yeah.
you know, and I want to be them. I want to be having that fun. I want to be, having more fun.
Mm.
So then, if I'm on that end of the scale, then I've got to create an illusion to other people that, well, you're doing this, but I'm doing this, and look at me,
Mm.
and it just snowballs and becomes people's lives,
So
you
because
know.
they identify in that way is kind of having the effect that others are doing that too.
Yeah, so I am who people perceive me to be.
Mm. Yeah.
And then they create whole movements behind, these false identities, and powerful movements that are, affecting the lives of, so many people. And it's just a fake world, really. And that's why out of this movement of self-centeredness comes increased signs that it's not working, with the
Yeah.
depression, the
Yeah.
anxiety, the feeling of I don't even know who I am, I'm nobody, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that. I must change, I must become like they want me to be. We're so easily influenced by others anyway. And the more we depend on others for our personality and our feeling of success and worthiness, then the weaker I am. I don't really have anything that's me. It's all just a bunch of other people's opinions of me that
Exactly.
creates my identity. But all of it's
Exactly.
fake, whether everybody likes me or nobody likes me, because of my material situation, whether it's physical, mental, philosophical, political, whatever it is. It's all not true, you know. So therefore, there's no real strength there, and there's no real happiness and fulfillment there, right?
Yeah. I see
Mhm.
totally. I see totally. Because it's not real. It's not the real. It's not seeing you for what you really are, and you're not getting strength from what you really are.
Yeah. So that's why the true
Sure.
spiritual personalities, those who are the realized souls, those who have actually traversed this path, that's another point about breaking trail. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is speaking, and he says, many sages in the past have traversed this path and become successful. You know,
Yeah.
this is the path of self realization. This is the path of self discovery, the path of, spiritual evolution and reestablishing our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord based on the guidance and teachings of the Yoga scriptures.
Mm.
And so the Lord Himself says, many sages in the past have traversed this path, broken this trail, and suc- achieve success and happiness. So it works. The process works. See, yoga is not a process of failure. We're advocating bhakti yoga because it's the highest platform of yoga as declared, in the Vedic scriptures and by the Supreme Lord Himself and by those who have traversed this path and become fully realized. They all declare that bhakti yoga is the topmost yoga system, the summum bonum of the yoga process. Mhm. So, if the Lord says you can traverse this path and become successful, many others have, see,
Mm.
meaning, you know, it is a path that works, if you will. It does lead to where you want to go, and that's true happiness and true satisfaction. And full strength and understanding of your true self. I am spirit soul. And the body is temporary. And no matter what it looks like and how much I change it or dress it or present it to others in a way they want to see it or whatever, it's temporary and it's gone in a flash. all of a sudden you're not in that body anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Um,
it's just a false promise.
but and that's like again back to the breaking trail comparison because I was thinking about that as well. That I, in terms of I don't know if someone is maybe someone can relate to this, but when you're skiing and you sometimes, and especially this one time, I remember we were trying to follow a trail into the mountains, and we, you there was a lost trail there. So the trail was there. It was just like there was snow that had fallen on top of it, and you had to really feel your way because you couldn't see it, but you could feel it when you were walking there. Like this is the path that someone has gone before. So I guess that's the idea. Like that someone has walked there before, and this lost trail. You're not breaking trail like a completely new trail. You're not just making your own thing, but you're following in the footsteps of these realized souls that you say. And that trail is just a little bit more difficult to see. The snow has been, just come over it. The fresh snow has come over it a little bit, but you know,
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. We're not
it's but
saying just branch off on your own and make a new spiritual path.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
opposite of what we're saying. You must follow this established path,
mm,
that's been given by the Supreme Lord Himself and handed down through ages and ages, And the wise people they're taking others across the same trail, you see, and achieving success. Mm. So another point, we're always, talking about mountains and snow and whatever. Funny how that keeps coming back, but uh, if somebody has walked before you on that snow-covered trail, and
uh,
there's tracks might be kind of slightly covered, but there's still faint indications of where they walked,
mm,
then it's much easier
mm,
for you. And,
yeah,
and well, I'm on the right trail because I'm following these tracks, provided the tracks go in the right direction. You can follow somebody that's lost and, you're just following another person into his lost world. But we're talking about a person who's not lost. And in this yoga, uh, you know, path, so to speak,
mm,
there's nobody lost here. The masters are not lost. They're just saying, follow my footsteps. And
mm,
it's the more closely we can do that, you see, the more successful we'll be, and the easier the route is, and the safer it is. You know,
right.
one time I was skiing in the mountains, backcountry skiing with a friend of mine, and he was leading because he was basically my mountain backcountry mentor. And we made a deal when we met. I mean, he was quite well known in the area as one of the guys. He was like on top of the hierarchy there. But he became interested in chanting and the teachings, of Bhakti Yoga and so on. And so we made an agreement. He said, "You know what? I'll teach you about the mountains if you teach me about spiritual life." And I
you were
said,
like,
"Done,
you were like, sure, I
done
don't.
deal." No problem.
You'd
So
probably be happy to do that anyway, whatever he was gonna teach you. I mean, yeah.
so anyway, one day we're out and he's in front and we're going up this place and so he didn't know that the idea was always follow me, follow me. So we go up to a high, higher up, and then there was a dip in the snow. Like in his trail, he was far enough ahead that I couldn't see him. I was just following his tracks, and
Oh,
so this dip went down and up like that,
yeah.
and then so that's where he went, and then off to the right. And so my, concept was, well, why go down and back up when I can just go around to the left
Oh, oh no.
and avoid this dip.
Uh,
So that's what I just took my own route. But as I got to the apex of this circle that I was going to make to come back to his trail, there was a cornice and the whole thing broke off, you
oh,
know. And
whoa.
so, of course, I was okay. It wasn't. But when I got to him, I told him, and he said, "Yeah, see, I told you, follow my tracks."
Wow.
I said, "I got okay, I get it."
That's
You
very
know, you
good.
know.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's the way it is in spiritual life. We don't go off on another person on our own whim. You see, we understand the master is the one who knows, and you follow his tracks, you can't go wrong. You see,
Because it's a dangerous game. Like life is, there's so many pitfalls. I mean, really, just
yeah, yeah. So if you've got faith in your guide, your spiritual guide, and you follow him, then you know you're safe. You know
mm,
you're okay. Walking through a minefield, you're not going to just go off on your own. You're following a person in front of you steps. Well, he stepped there and it didn't blow up. So therefore, you step in the same place and so on and so on. You see, and you get through the minefield. You don't just go off on your own and say, well, I like it over here. The flowers over there. Maybe this will be shorter and easier. And, you know, because that's a life and death situation. So in spiritual life, it's actually even more crucial as being a life and death situation.
but
You know.
but this is an important point that people speak about a lot, and I think because you do find a lot of people who say all different kinds of things, but then it generally falls back to intuition. Like, what is the role of intuition or the gut feeling in this
Well,
game?
intuition can be pure or it can be all very much contaminated.
Mm,
Depending on the individual. So what I might feel in my gut may be very biased or prejudiced because of desire or you know, all kinds of different reasons that I want something to be this way. So my gut tells me to go in this way, but the more pure we are, then the more that gut feeling, which is basically, you know, number two things, number our intelligence and the Lord in the heart, revealing the truth to us. You see, so that's why I can't always trust my intuition. I mean, many people have found that they acted on their intuition and it wasn't trustworthy. You
yeah.
know.
Mm,
But, if I had really, many people, again, back to the mountains, one thing that the authorities on all this backcountry travel say is, if it feels wrong, then don't group think. Don't just, oh, because everybody else thinks it's okay and you don't, doesn't mean it is. You know,
yeah.
basically
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
saying follow your gut.
Mm,
And so yeah, there's validity there. But when it comes to spiritual life, again, it's a little bit different. But if you're really serious about knowing the truth, then the more serious you are, the more that inner feeling is going to be correct. And if somebody's speaking some philosophy that's just like, you know, obviously not true, you're probably going to feel that if you're serious.
mm,
But
mm.
if you're not serious, then it's going to sound correct. See,
I
because
see.
that's what you want to hear and it appeals to what you already believe and think. And so, oh, I like that guy. He says what I already think and feel. And so, it's completely wrong, but you're completely wrong too, and your thinking and feeling is wrong. So therefore, you find each other and support each other in the wrong direction. Mm.
But in a sense, it really comes back to sincerity. You know, like you get what you want, and then you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Sincerity and faith, and
uh,
that's a crucial factor, in spiritual life. And at some point a person might, seriously decide that I want to change my life. I mean, seriously decide, not just whimsically, oh, it'd be good to change my life, if it was easy and fit in with what I already like to do. No, sincerely, seriously decide to change your life, whatever it takes, you know. And from the beginning, it might be difficult. I'm going to be faced with many challenges, and I'm going to, probably go in a direction that's not popular and whatever, but I'm going to do it. Well, that person will be guided properly, and he will be led to a true master, true teacher who can actually truly, you know, help him traverse the material world, the ocean of material mystery, as we've talked about many times, you know.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that's why you see so many people going in so many different directions, fully convinced that they're right
Mm, that's true.
because they're
Yeah.
getting what they want. They're convinced because that's what they want to be convinced of.
Well, and that's again something that is kind of comforting when you look at the world and you see that there's so much imperfections and things that you wouldn't like to have in the world. Well, how, however you can change it, if people keep wanting what they want, then that will manifest in the world, and there will be, weird things and wars and conflicts because
Yeah.
people
Imperfect
do
people
not
want imperfect things and
exactly,
they
exactly,
create imperfections.
exactly. Yeah, because
Mm.
I was always, I mean, there's been a huge thing for me. Like from the start, when my mom, she's really like a mountain goat or a mountain fox or something. She's really inspired me to be in nature a lot, and I just really, really wanted to do something about the environmental problem, and that's what like started me into the spiritual path, so to say, because so I started studying environmental engineering, and I finished my studies, but then you know, I felt like there had to be something more, some
Yeah.
other, because you cannot, again, like it comes back to what people want and the inside will reflect on the outside. So you can't just change technology and assume that everything's gonna be good because you have better technology. Like we're gonna misuse it somehow.
Of course. Yeah.
It's,
As long as the unfulfilled need of the soul is nagging us, then we're going to try to fulfill that from consuming because we think we're the
mm,
body and we're going to consume in one way or another. Whether we make our energy from fossil fuels or, wind and solar and et cetera, it's still going to be the consuming consciousness that's driving the whole thing,
exactly.
and so it's not really the solution. You know, what is the E.F. Schumacher said. He was an economist from Britain, in the 70s, and he said, "There's enough for everybody's need, but not enough for every man's greed." So nature provides for every man's need. Look at all the animals. They're provided for. You know, nature has provided food for this species, food for that species, and the plants and the aquatics, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they have their needs met, and their needs are much more simple. See, but when the soul gets the human form of life, the physical needs, are there. And so nature provides all that. And then, but when it comes to mental and psychological needs, that enters another realm because that's where the need of the soul manifests the most. These deep desires of fulfillment that aren't being met. So with our intelligence and so on, we figure out more and more ways to consume, more readily, more easily, more conveniently,
And try
you
and fill
know,
that hole.
more globally, to fill up the
Exactly.
hole. But the hole is not being filled. So we just develop new technology to increase it. And then we see we've created a problem. So we try to keep the same emptiness, and greed, but now try to adjust it with different types of energy or whatever, environmental habits to improve. But we haven't solved the
Exactly.
problem.
No.
And so if you don't go to the root problem, I'm spirit soul and I need spiritual food, then you just keep generating the same scenario in different ways, and
Mm.
you never really solve the problem.
Yeah.
Mm. So you're not breaking any new trails here. It's the same old trail, with a new
Exactly.
pair of shoes or a new pair of pants or a new jacket or you know. It's still the same trail, and you're not really changing anything. You know, you're just dressing up different. You know,
Or you're
so
following the trail, but you're following in the other direction. Like you're going against the trail, but you're still going the trail. You're just like,
yeah, yeah. It's
mm,
like so that's why we need to just stick to truthfulness. Mm. Speaking the nature of reality. Reality is we're spirit soul. I mean, that's absolute reality. Absolute means it's eternally true. It never changes. That's what absolute means. Absolute truth. It never changes. The world is a world of relative truth.
yeah,
It's changing all the time. It's true because of these certain set of conditions. You know, you change those conditions and that truth is no longer relevant. So it's not true anymore. Like I always give the example of water. It boils at 100 degrees centigrade, you know. Well, everybody that's been to any kind of features class, yeah, that's true, you know. But it's relative because if you go to 4,000 meters,
um, lost you there. But
water boils at a lower temperature. See?
I think repeat from. I lost you like
Oh, where'd you
10
lose me?
seconds ago. But like, yeah,
Oh, something's.
this,
Anyway,
like
water
10 seconds
boils
ago.
at
I mean,
100 degrees.
exactly. That's where water
Water
boiling at
boils at
100
100
degrees.
degrees, right? And everybody says 100 degrees Celsius. And people go, yes, yes, that's true because I learned that in physics and whatever, you see. But if you go to 4,000 meters, it boils at a lower temperature, see? And so therefore it's no longer true. So if water is boiling at 4,000 meters, you can't say, oh, it's 100 degrees because it's not. That's why it takes longer to cook food at higher altitude.
Yeah.
Because the water's not as hot. 90 degrees or 80 degrees is not as hot as 100 degrees. So if it took you 10 minutes at sea level, it takes you 15 minutes at altitude.
Yeah.
So it's relative to the altitude because the altitude is determining the atmospheric pressure, and therefore the water boils. Pressure is less at a higher altitude, so the water boils at a lower temperature, et cetera, et cetera. And anyway, the point is the same. It's a
It's
relative
relative.
truth because it's dependent on altitude,
Mm.
barometric
Mm.
pressure. Mm. So the material world truths, you see, the material truths are all in that category, relative. See,
Mm.
it used to be a person lived 40, 50 years, back in some previous times, and that was considered old age. Oh, he lived a long time. He lived to be 50, because
Mm.
at that time, due to conditions, that was an old lifespan. But, now the average age is 80 or 78 or whatever it is, and you think, well, 50, that's young, you know. So it's relative to the time.
Yeah,
You see,
that's for
it's
sure.
all relative. Whereas absolute truth is always true, you know. So the absolute truth is I'm spirit soul. I'm not this material body. See, this time I'm in a human body, Well, that's true if you want to identify me according to the body. See, but I'm not the body. Last lifetime I may have been in a dog body. You see, next lifetime I may be in a bird body. So, oh, he's a bird, or he's a human, or he's a dog. You know, no, that's just the body. But the absolute truth is, still the same spiritual person, you see, with a different set of clothes on, so to speak. So I'm spirit soul is eternally true. That never, ever changes, you see. The body's temporary, I'm eternal. That's always true. I'm an individual. I'll never become you. I'll never become someone else. I'll never become God. I'm the individual that I am today, that I was last time in another life, and I'll be in my next life. That's eternally true. I'm not going to be another person, you see. That's all
Yeah.
eternally the same. So this is absolute knowledge. Mm. And then
Mm.
you branch out to the material world, which is just, just another, place that's temporary, made of material energy, and on it goes. So if you learn to live your life on the absolute platform of truth, then you know you're going to be living correctly. And that's the teaching of the Vedas, especially the bhakti teaching,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
And so that's what the masters teach. And their trail that they're trying to encourage us to follow them on is a trail through the journey of life in the material world, following the absolute knowledge. Mm. To go higher and higher in consciousness, to evolve spiritually, you know, and come more and more to enlightenment about our true identity, the material world, the reality of the material world, the temporary nature of matter and the eternal nature of spirit, and ultimately, you know, knowledge of the spiritual world and our position in the spiritual world, our relation with the source of everything, the original person, Adi Purusha, the Supreme Lord. What is my relationship? How can I enhance that relationship? All of that. That is, the trail that we're talking about breaking. That is the trail, you know, and it's a trail that leads to absolute life, an absolute world, you know, and it's the trail of the soul, you know. Mm. So that's that's wonderful. And if a person wants to
Wow.
really change their life, then that's how you do it.
You're off lucky. I think it's time to mention that you're in Kazakhstan and your internet is a bit unstable, so we just have to accept the way that it is. You
Is
know,
our
because
internet unstable now? Huh? His? Slava said it's your internet.
oh, I'm in Norway, man. You can't-
Norway might be a nice country, but it's not internet proof.
yeah. No, what were you saying? I mean, I lost you maybe like 10 seconds ago.
Anyway, the point is that the absolute journey along the absolute trail of absolute knowledge led by the absolute master is the trail to ultimate success in life. You got
That's
me?
some. Yeah, I just like. Uh, yeah, I got it. That's what
So,
we want. Yeah, that's what we all want to be successful. We're just aiming for success in different ways, and we're really really going for
yeah,
it for the material success or the career. That's
yeah.
like
Yeah,
what's.
we want a good outcome from an undertaking, and, that has to be a spiritually realized outcome for it to be really good, ultimate
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and eternally good, not just good for this lifetime, but how about the next one, and how about the
Oh,
next one after that?
yeah,
Your
we're
eternal
talking
life.
absolute here. We're talking about eternal good, eternal success. you And
Yeah.
yeah, all these material success stories, they're like flashes in the pan. You can read about them in the news every day about some amazing success story that ended just in nothing. You know?
Yeah, that's true. And we've mentioned this many times, but like Russell Brand, or there are many artists that are just
Yeah.
the fame doesn't cut it.
I just read a story yesterday in the news, a Romanian, uh, cryptocurrency entrepreneur who got in very early, and he was worth $2 billion, and 41 years old. You'd say that was successful.
Yeah.
For most people, that would be a success. But supposedly, the story goes that he was swimming off the coast of Costa Rica, and got caught up in a current and disappeared, and gone.
Wow.
And so, of course, there's always theories come out. Well, maybe it's not really true, and he just, you know, arranged his disappearance for whatever reason and whatever. But the point is whether he did or didn't. That's not the point. It's was that a success? And when he dies, if he's got $200 billion accumulated through cryptocurrency or other means, he's still gone. You know, it's like what? You know, you going to take that with you? And of course, no. So it's that's the kind of success is not success in the reality of this term.
but why do we? I mean, just why do we do that? I mean, if if you, I don't know, it just seems so unreasonable to me why you would spend your life doing that. But maybe I'm just, I can never make any money anyway, so I've just decided I've given up. But but it's just like,
Well, it's basically ignorance. If you bring it right down to it, it's ignorance. You
mm,
know, and we don't know all these things that we've been declaring to be true. The Vedas declare to be true. The masters declare to be true. You know, if you don't know this, then you're going to try to fulfill those desires of success and fame and falsely proud and whatever any way you
mm,
can.
yeah,
Any way you can, you're going to. And some people's karma is such they just fall into a materially successful life. A lot of people dabbled in cryptocurrency and lost all their money. And here's a guy that got in and made 2 billion, and that was his karma. That's what he had in store for him. And people look at that and say, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Not necessarily. It depends on your karma.
yeah,
Some people try and try and try. Just like you said, you can't make any money. No matter what you do, you know, money eludes you. And
yeah,
other people might do a very similar thing and just line their pockets. So,
so it's
people forget it's karma. It's not, oh, he did this and he did that. It's karma. Of course, he did whatever he did previously to make it so that was his karma. It's not like he didn't do something because
mm,
karma is just the results of our actions.
yeah,
So,
because
if
people win the lottery, and they think like, oh, they did nothing to, you know,
yeah, it was just their time to win the lottery, and other people it wasn't their time.
yeah,
But and this is absolute knowledge. You see, this is the reality of the nature of the material world,
mm,
and that's what we need to learn. It said a person in the mode of goodness accepts what comes to him easily.
mm,
So if a person's struggling, it should be obvious. This is not, your karma. It's not what you're going to get this time.
yeah.
So just relax.
Well, that's what I exactly, exactly, and let go of control. Like that feeling of trying to control everything to the very end is really, it's really a suffering feeling. It's not a nice feeling. Like you feel like there's no one to protect you. There's nothing to protect you but your own power.
Yeah,
And not just yourself, but like your family. And that's I don't even have kids. I just have the wife. But you know that's a strong feeling. Like you want to protect them. You want to make sure that they have a good life. So you struggle to make it possible.
yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, well, we struggle, we try, and it's like we think I can do it. I'm the doer, and this is part of the
mm,
illusion of the material world. That we're not the doer. It's the modes of nature that are the doer. We have to have another discussion on the modes of nature.
yeah, that's for
This
sure.
is this is so critical to understand, and then Without this knowledge that is so crucial to understanding life, we don't know what to do with life. And we come to all these false conclusions and realizations. And, you know, we accept false teachings, and it just keeps us in a very difficult position, you know, a
Mhm.
very difficult position, you know. And then you go off on other, areas of the illusion, and, the desire to be happy through sensual pleasures. And that never ends either. And, you know, we just become more and more depraved and degraded, and, you know, remove any kind of obstacles and barriers to sensual experiences, thinking that it will make me more happy. And, it's so obvious it doesn't make anyone happy, but we can't see that. We
No,
can't see that. Or maybe it didn't make them happy, but it'll make me happy.
you're just
You
walking
know,
that trail and just pushing it to the limit.
yeah,
You're like,
yeah, yeah. That's another trail, but it's a trail that leads to the cliff. And eventually you're going to fall off that cliff. And the rocky landing at the bottom is not comfortable. Mhm. And so another point, there's so many points that just pop up, but whatever direction in life I take, it's not just me. You got me?
yeah, I just lost you for, I
It's
just lost
okay.
you for like 5 seconds.
Okay. So anyway, whatever direction in life I take, it's not just me. You know, Yeah, I'm not an island. I'm not an independent entity just going through life in whatever way I do and not affecting other people. See, I affect other people no matter what direction I take. I influence people. I create situations with people that affects them in one way or another way. And so if you've got a whole society following a philosophy of, increased sensual pleasures, you're just a mass movement, and you're going to have leaders that stand out and say, well, hey, everybody, come this way. This will make you
Yeah,
more happy.
yeah,
And you got another leader who stands up and
yeah.
he says,
And we're
well,
gonna have artists. We're
that's
gonna have
that's okay, but
the
this is better. You know, is the internet playing with us? Obviously, he's frozen.
yeah, the internet is for this. I don't know if it's on my end or your end, but you do disappear sometimes. But um,
Slava's convinced it's you.
I, I
Huh? Yeah.
yeah, but amassing and the leaders um leading us in the wrong direction. That was the last I.
Yeah, and everybody just, follows the new one, the new direction, the new trendy thing, and that, along the way, you see all these, people who were the casualties, let's say, along the way, you know, but people just keep going, and, you know, they can't understand it doesn't work. The whole drug story, and fentanyl, the new drug of choice for many people, and it's so easy to smuggle, and it's such a small quantity, does so much, and and it kills people, and people are just jumping on board like, well, doesn't matter, it's worth it because the high is fantastic. And it's like, if it kills me, it does, but I'll have a few moments of pleasure before I die. I mean, like it's absurd when you look at it from the outside, but when you're in that consciousness, that's just where you're at, and that's
Mhm.
that's the captured consciousness that makes it so we just are victimized completely. You know, so It's
That's
a sad story, and if we come
exactly.
back to truthfulness
Mm,
and following the truth, see, see the world as it is, the nature of reality, don't distort the facts, don't try to please others, just embrace the truth. If it's painful, if it's not painful, the truth often hurts. It's not always comfortable. The truth is often very, very difficult,
mm.
you know. But if you're a seeker of the truth, you understand that's just the reality of this path, you know.
And that's again like I this is Bhaktivedanta Swami, one of your spiritual masters. He said, if I remember right, that material life is, or spiritual life may be hard, but material life is impossible.
Yes,
Like,
that's one of his
just
statements. It is.
wow.
Yeah.
It's just like boom.
Yeah. Material
And
life. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah, that's
no,
exactly.
like, dude, because I was just thinking like it's, for me it wasn't like I don't think of it. I mean, of course, one says that, but when I reflect, it's not like I changed my life. I came to life, and I guess it's the same thing. Like, okay, so spiritual life may be hard, but that's when you feel really alive, and okay, so it may be hard, but that's the only time that you're really alive, when you're pursuing that, and when you're doing that, like you're following again, like from our marketing, like you're following your calling, you're this inner yearning for something more. You're finally like following that, and okay, so you might have to break. Right? It may be hard, and you may have to repeat and stamp it, and then try again, and but that's, you still know you
Yeah. Yeah. And I often explain to people, when you know that you're doing the right thing with your life, that's huge.
know that.
Did you get that? Yeah. I don't know. There's some technical problems here.
Yeah, it disappeared again. But let me try to use another Wi-Fi, and I'm gonna see if that works, if it's on my end.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, sometimes. Okay. But what I was saying is when you know that you're doing the right thing with your life, that's huge.
Mm, exactly.
I mean, because most people don't know they're doing the right thing with their life. I mean, they're doing what they think they want to do, or they're trying to reach a point where they can do what they want to do, or whatever. But, they don't really know I'm doing the right thing with my life.
Mm,
You know,
exactly.
there's still some doubt there, or maybe it would have been better if I'd have done this, or maybe I should do something different. But when you know that you're doing the right thing with your life, that in and of itself, just that alone is amazing.
And it's because you can really cover that up a lot, and that's what I feel I did. I covered that feeling up in so many layers of, but I have this materialization, and about this, and about that. But deepest at the inside of, at my core, I knew it, that this is not it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you
It's like
do.
you're,
Some people do.
yeah, some
The
people do.
fortunate do. The fortunate do.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
mm,
And how you
yeah,
become fortunate is start the journey. Start the journey. I think you said in your intro presentation or something, the longest journey starts with the first step.
mm,
I mean, you got to start somewhere. You know, and we talked about habits. Last week or something that
mm,
you need to develop these spiritual habits. Because When something becomes a habit, it makes it so you do it when otherwise you might not even have done it. You know, it's just a habit to do it, so you do it.
Exactly.
And we're talking about spiritual habits now because the material influence on us is very strong. And some days you just don't want to do what you should do. I mean, it's just like the mode of ignorance is there or the mode of passion is there, and you're either too lazy or too agitated or whatever. But because you've got this habit of practice, you do
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
And
It's like.
that supersedes or trumps the influence of the ignorance or the passion that may be, predominant at that time. So habits
Okay.
lead to success. Spiritual habits are basically something that should be seen as I need to cultivate these spiritual habits. And that's why the whole yoga process, bhakti yogas and all the yoga teachings are filled with practices. Do this, do this, do this. And,
Mm.
it promotes regularity and therefore cultivation of habits.
Mm.
And
Because life goes up and down, and if you don't pursue, those habits, and you have nothing to hold on to when the waves of life come storming in, like, yeah, like you said, you feel like it and you do it, you don't feel like it and you don't do it because there's no habit there.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, look at the successful athletes. They got the Olympics coming up, and you're going to have the best athletes in the world. Go to Japan and show how good they are. Really, everybody's going there hoping to win, or at least do good. And they're all going there with a lot of training habits. All
Mm.
you know, they've done their training when they didn't want to, when it was very difficult to do it. Pushing through injuries and
Exactly.
you know mind conditions that weren't favorable, and on and on and on. But they did it, and therefore
Mm.
they are now in the Olympics. You see. So if we can do it materially, which is really, it's temporary. Everybody that wins a gold medal it's that's a temporary thing. And they're going to leave this world, with a whole bunch of gold medals, maybe. But you know, it's a temporary achievement. But spiritual habits go with you through death, right up to the end and beyond. When you leave the body, those habits, those achievements, those successes, that determination goes with you. Mm.
And that's a very comforting idea. Like, yeah, it's not in vain, even
There's
though.
no loss. The reality that the teachers are always telling us is there is no loss. You see. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, what is the fate of a yogi who becomes unsuccessful? Somehow he falls down, he doesn't achieve success. And Krishna describes there's no loss. You know,
Mm.
in his next life, he will either, take birth in a very favorable situation, aristocratic family, a good facility for continuation of his spiritual journey, maybe take place in a family of spiritualists, transcendentalists, and from the very beginning of his life, he will be trained in spiritual, you know, truths,
Mm.
etc. In other words, he won't lose anything.
Mm.
You can't lose, and every person would like to have an investment that was foolproof, that you couldn't lose in, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're investing your life in a foolproof investment. You can't lose. There is absolutely no possibility of losing, you know. So, you know, that's that's the best assurance that this is the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm. And purely there is no such. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
So we kind of got, a little bit off the subject of, the century of the self, but it's all about the century of the self. We're all the things we've referred to and discussed is about the self, but the century of the self is more and more. I'm the body, I'm the mind. This world is my home. I can be happy here. Sensual pleasure is the goal,
Mm.
etc.
Yeah.
You know, which is, an all. It's all untrue. Everything I just said is not true. None of it. You know, I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. This world's not my home. Sensual pleasure will not make me happy. Material success is temporary and fleeting, doesn't satisfy me, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All
You know,
flipped upside down.
it's completely
Or
upside down. And we invest our life in that. See, we
yeah.
invest our life in that, which is absolute guaranteed failure. Mm. But as I
Well,
said
yeah.
somewhere back in this discussion, it's really about ignorance. We don't have the knowledge.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
don't have the knowledge.
And if we don't have another option, then like we better like we seem to rather go somewhere than go nowhere. Like at least we're going somewhere.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. That's
because well, what can we do? You know, you gotta.
You're going to go somewhere because the
yeah.
soul is active by nature.
Yeah.
So
And
everybody's going somewhere. So we need to learn where to go and how to go, where to go and how to go.
mm.
Mm. And so yeah,
No, I just wanted to just give the opportunity for if since we're having this live stream, well, I thought we could have the opportunity if someone is wanting to ask something, you can write it, and
uh,
if there's anything coming in, we can, you know,
yeah, good. Yeah, there's a few comments coming in, and questions will be time dependent. If we
yeah,
have time,
very.
we will answer, and
Or we will answer on some other, next week when we record next week's podcast or
yeah, we can
so.
accumulate a list of questions and have a whole program on answering the questions of the audience.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
And so yeah, questions are good, and sometimes we aren't able to explain it in the way that you want to hear, but we explain it as it is. That's all we can do. You know.
but if, maybe this is gonna be like upside down because this is the end of the program. but maybe you can briefly mention like I don't know what your background is, Balakhilya, and just because I thought we were gonna say that, but I kind of forgot because like you have been living this lifestyle for over 50 years now, and I wrote in the text outdoor enthusiast and former surfer and
Presence on the internet. You know, it's I've explained that. Yeah, I was always the pleasure seeker. I never was a accumulator of wealth and fame. I just wanted to have a good time. That's all. I just wanted to have a good time. And that meant I, you know, had in my mind certain activities that I liked, and I did
mm,
those, and I liked it. So it was always outdoor oriented. I was, raised on a farm, and you know, the outdoors was everywhere. And I spent, most of my time when I wasn't in school or something outside. Even when I was working on the farm, I was outside. you know, working in the field or whatever it was. And, my activities were hunting and fishing, and that's what farm boys did in the part of the world where I grew up. And, you know, that's what I did. And so on and so on. And then I, became attracted to ocean sports because I started working at the seaside during the summers to
Mm,
make money as a waiter to pay for my university education. And, the sea was the nature there. That's what the nature was. It was the sea. And so I
right.
became attracted to scuba diving. And then one day saw a friend surfing, and I went, wow, what is that guy doing? And he was actually a friend. And this is a long story. Maybe we'll do it another podcast because we're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
But anyway, the background is nature and simple living, to a degree, and not trying to have a big profession and a lot of wealth and accumulated things. And, it just led on and on to moving around and living in Hawaii and so on. So we can go into it more detail sometime if anybody's interested. I don't
Yeah.
like to talk about myself other than the fact it kind of makes a point of anybody can do this. You know,
Yeah.
I
Mm, um, yes, anyone can do this. So we have. We just have to. Patience is a spiritual quality. So I'm just gonna wait a few seconds and see. It's probably gonna come back. Or it's me and he's there all the time. It's hard to know. Oh, internet. But so I don't know. If you you know, at whatever time now, what is this? Our podcast will be live on Spotify and Google and Apple, and see if you guys wanna go there after this program is finished. And oh, I see that he's back.
yeah.
Oh, here you are.
Okay. So
Was I gone
anyway,
or
that this
yeah?
time it was our end.
Okay. Thank you for giving me that.
No need to put the blame where it isn't. That was our end. So everybody, that's the thing, the funny thing, cheating propensity. Oh, it was your fault. No, it was your fault. It's your end. No, 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 it's your end. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. That's just, under the control of the material nature. That's just how it is. You know.
Always blaming something else and someone else, and yeah.
So
Oh,
anyway, yeah. Like I say, I was just looking at some comments that have come in, and we appreciate your comments. You know, thank you for sending them in, and most people are, very favorable. Uh, so here's one: the internet.
oh, jeez.
So let's chant. We're gonna have our
Exactly. I was just gonna. I think this.
we're gonna have our sankirtan. Uh, we're gonna keep the mantra pretty much the same. For a few podcasts because regular viewers, you won't have to learn a new mantra every week or
yeah.
something and new tunes and kind of be struggling with the new thing. It's good to just have we'll just call it the Breaking Trail theme song. Although, you know, it's just simple Hari Bol Gorunga or Gorunga Hari Bol, simple mantra, simple tune. And so each week you're going to feel more comfortable and just relaxing and chanting it without having to learn new words and tunes and so on.
Yep. Perfect.
So the process is I chant and everyone listens and then everyone responds. My friend, and just try to relax and meditate on the sound. Goranga. Everybody. Goranga. 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 Hare Bo. Hare Bo. Hare Bo. Gorangaribo, 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 Gorangarebo, 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 Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Goranga, Haribo, Haribo, Goranga, Haribo, 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 Haribo. Goranga Haribo. Haribo. Goranga Haribo. Goranga Haribo. Goranga Haribo. Goranga Haribo. Goranga Haribo.
Haribo.
So that's Sankirtan. That's what we do a lot.
Yeah, well,
Congregational chanting.
one of our habits.
That is a habit that we have. That is a habit that is a very positive habit. Change your life. Yeah, so we thank everybody that joined us. Thank you for your comments. And we'll be
Thank you
with
for your
you.
patience.
Yeah, sorry about all the technical internet stuff. I mean, it happens all the time. I'm kind of used to it now.
Yeah,
It's one of the
yeah,
virtues in spiritual life is tolerance. So we have to tolerate the internet many, many times. But thank you for tolerating with us. So, Ruben, thank you very much. And
thank, thank you,
we'll be
Balakhilya.
back next week. Like I say, you can invite your friends, leave your comments, ask your questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Any
great.
farewell wishes, Ruben?
Yeah, I do maybe have a couple, but you could, if you want to prepare for your next program, you could do that, and I could do the farewell wishes to people.
Yeah. Yeah, we have another program coming up. And not long. So, once again, everybody, thank you for joining the Breaking Trail podcast. And we hope you'll find it interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Balakhilya.
All right. All the best. Namaste,
Namaste.
Haribo.
Right, so we're just gonna end this live stream with saying that we'll soon be available on basically all the podcast platforms that are out there. There you are. So you know, at any time now, the podcast will start rolling out, and you can listen. I think the promo trailer will be there very soon. We're working on like email list, websites, and stuff, so it's kind of a work in progress. But what we do have is a Facebook page, at least. So that's the Breaking Trail podcast. So you can go there. Yeah. So, and if you want to contribute to the project, we also have a Patreon page for those of you who want to, help us with the running costs and everything. So more than that, yeah, thanks for your patience, and happy that all of you wanted to join. So have a nice day. It's 26 degrees here in Tromsø, so I'm probably gonna get out there. Very rare, probably the one summer day that we have. So, but thank you and namaste. And do write us any comments and questions, and we can take them up in the upcoming podcasts. Okay.